All right. Time is 7:24. Officially call the meeting order. I thank everyone for coming. I think it's closer than I'd like, but I do believe we have a quorum. Just with Mr. Howard via FaceTime. Thank everyone for coming. I'm going to move as quickly as I can in the beginning. We're going to have some a couple of things that are going to be time consuming, I would imagine, in terms of those. I want them to be, because I want some context from you all if possible. So I'm going to go with Ellis. Okay, a motion to approve the agenda from last week's minutes.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Come on to old business. First, with the select committee on USG grievances, I've been told Clay update that they are doing it there. They had the most of the executive summary written, but in the interest of time, I'll just tell you that we expect a copy of that report after our executive committee meeting, after our meeting next week. So we're actually having a special meeting in 2 weeks. Anyways, I'll explain that in a minute. So after next Tuesday, we'll send out the grievance report to everybody via email to the entire group list after we've gone over it in executive committee. And so I think Diana and Clay, I'm sure that'll come up at our next meeting as well. But to give them a chance to have everything down, unless you really wanted to.
I would say if anyone has any pertinent questions or questions they would otherwise desire to ask, I'd leave it at that. Otherwise, I'd probably just bore it. I mean, it would might be even a climax.
Yeah.
So.
I do want to thank Clay and Diana for this. I mean, obviously, given the time frame of what it's taking to get the grievance committee done, I'm not saying that the recommendations aren't going to be astute. I would be lying if I said that the administration is going to take what we say to heart and apply them, given the current climate and everything else going on. But what we do know is how to facilitate, and you've done a wonderful job step by step doing it procedurally, and how to carry the process out, which is sometimes just as important. So. And we'll update you guys, like I said, next week with the result of that and the recommendations related to. Next thing goes down to absence policy. Flowers, you have the floor.
So, actually, I was going to talk about this in my grad council report, but basically, Faculty Senate has neglected to discuss either the absence accommodation policy or the undergraduate student grievance policy at any of its most recent meetings, which means the entire thing is on hold, right? Until Thursday, when the Graduate Council is set to pass its resolution concerning the absence policy. So if one body passes a resolution in support and another body does nothing, then the entire process is held up until that other body can actually get its stuff together and pass something about it. If they pass a negative resolution, then we have to go back to the drawing board. However, at the last Graduate Council meeting, or the meeting before that, it was recommended that the Undergraduate Education Policy Committee and the Ed Policies Committee of Grad Council get together to discuss the differences that two bodies are having so that we can actually come together and decide on an absence policy. Said meeting has not happened, so in response, myself and the undergraduate representative to the Undergrad Ed Policies Committee drafted a resolution for both of our respective bodies that basically compels Faculty Senate and Graduate Council to come together to talk out these issues before the end of the semester so that we can start the next semester with at least some work done on this absence policy. To be clear, this was supposed to be done by now. Actually, it was supposed to be done by the first meeting of both bodies of this semester. It hasn't. And this is a problem going into the next semester as we still have no absence policy. To be clear, the only absence policies currently available are the university-approved activities absence policy and the holiday absence policy. So we have no absence policy. Anything in your syllabus is what your professor decides it, even if it's the most draconian thing ever. Essentially, what myself and the rep to UEPC have decided is that this cannot stand. We need an actual absence policy that keeps us from being screwed. So I have drafted a resolution. That resolution is also being read at USG, although it hasn't, since they took an hour to get through committee reports. I have copies of it, which I will pass around. It's up on the big screen.
Your email too?
No, because I had to wait for it. Diana.
Oh, sorry.
So the resolution reads, whereas the Graduate and Professional Student Council, GPSC, is the recognized constituency body of graduate and professional students at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, whereas the undergraduate student government is the recognized constituency body of undergraduate students at SIUC, whereas Board of Trustees Policies 3F3 states, the student constituency body shall be the official organization designated to represent students in matters pertaining to student welfare, student activities, student participation in campus affairs, student participation in institutional planning and administration, and student opinion. Whereas the operating papers of the Graduate Council state, the Graduate Council is the body representing the graduate faculty in the determination of policies regarding graduate programs and regarding research activities within the university. Whereas the operating papers of the faculty IB1A describe the Faculty Senate as the body empowered to act as agent for the university faculty with delegated power to formulate broad policies in regard to the educational functions of the university, whereas GPSC is granted voting representation on the Graduate Council and Graduate Council committees to fulfill its obligation to ensure student participation in institutional planning and administration under Board of Trustees Policies 3F3, whereas USG is granted voting representation on the Faculty Senate Undergraduate Education Policy Committee to fulfill its obligation to ensure student participation in institutional planning and administration under Board of Trustees Policies 3F3, whereas a memo dated October 18, 2016 from Provost Ford to Faculty Senate and Graduate Council directed Faculty Senate and Graduate Council to provide substantive feedback and support for these policies, a deadline which has since passed. Wow, how did that happen? Whereas Graduate Council delegated this charge to the Educational Policies Committee, whose deliberation was in support of the Provost's proposals with slight modifications. Whereas the Faculty Senate delegated this charge to the UEPC, whose deliberation resulted in the resolution to recommend rejection of the proposal and an accompanying document. Whereas the USG and GPSC representatives to Faculty Senate expressed their displeasure at the document generated by the UEPC in its rejection of the Provost's proposal, in line with their responsibilities to ensure student participation in institutional planning and administration under Board of Trustees Policies 3F3, whereas the Faculty Senate subsequently decided to send the matter back to the UEPC for further consideration. Whereas no such consideration has taken place to the knowledge of the USG representative to the UEPC, whereas both Faculty Senate and Graduate Council must reach an affirmative decision on the document for it to be recommended to the Provost, whereas failure to reach an affirmative decision on a university-wide absence policy enables many of the problematic actions outlined in the statements of displeasure issued by the USG representative to the UEPC and the GPSC representative to the Educational Policies Committee. Therefore, be it resolved that USG and GPSC, at the recommendation of the USG representative to the UEPC and the GPSC representative to the Educational Policies Committee, request that the UEPC and the Graduate Council Educational Policies Committee meet at least once prior to the end of the semester to begin the preliminary processes of addressing the concerns that have prevented both bodies from reaching a joint decision concerning the university-wide absence accommodation policy. This meeting should be scheduled at the earliest convenience to ensure a good faith effort at initiating the process to reach a joint decision on this policy. Be it further resolved that GPSC supports USG in its continued concern at the lack of deliberation over the undergraduate student grievance policy within the UEPC, specifically with regards to the participation in USG in institutional planning and administration. So, to be clear, there's a lot of repeated verbiage in there because without documentation of the policy that grants USG and GPSC authority to compel these bodies to do something, they will tell us to go kick rocks. And I'm getting tired of them telling us to go kick rocks. So you have duplication of board of trustees policies and the operating papers of both bodies to ensure that they seriously consider the matter. The last, be it further resolved, is put in there because the undergraduate grievance policy is the undergraduate version of our graduate academic grievance policy. Since graduate students don't teach other graduate students, we can't file grievances against one another, but an undergraduate academic grievance policy would allow an undergraduate student to file an academic grievance against a graduate student, provided that graduate student was the instructor of record for that course. This is a matter that concerns us because it basically allows undergraduate students to say, hey, TA, you taught our course, or you taught my course, I disagree with this grade, I'm going to file an academic grievance against you. The only way they can do that currently is by appealing to the lead instructor of a course that has sections governed by a TA. Right? So it doesn't apply to instructors of record, or at least it shouldn't. But it has in the past, and that's not good. So, questions about the resolution? No questions about the resolution? So one of the things I would like to do, this is generally not a thing I'd like to do often, is suspend the rules so that we can vote on it.
We have a form.
It's a resolution, it gets a first reading, and then it's voted at the second meeting. So I want to suspend the rules so that we can vote on it now and get it out of the way so I can read it at grad council.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
All in favor? There you go.
Point of information.
Yes.
Is it as is right now? That's what we're submitting the rules table.
Yeah.
Or if there's one correction. Graded.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure
that
this wasn't like wrong.
I caught it as I was reading it. I'm like, well, that's just fixed. So graded. Yeah. So graded will become granted, and it will not be graded authority. Yep. So with that friendly amendment, one
Go
more.
for it. It's not.
Okay. So with that friendly amendment, let's put it to a vote. All in favor of passing this resolution with the amendment?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstentions? There you go.
Motion passes.
Unanimously.
Yay. So that's moving.
Well,
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's moving.
then we've got one more to get the Constitution.
Hold on, yeah, I got that. Just give me a second. Did you have it in the email?
Yes.
Okay. So including the email, today, sorry you're getting stuff on day of, but yeah, it's been a weird week obviously, and we're going to get that soon out for anyone who's concerned, but we felt it prudent for more or less for posterity's sake, if you will, to take an official vote. It's already been read through again, so I guess we have a motion to reinstate the rules at this time. Second, all in favor? We're going to official vote on the Constitution and the bylaws together in one meeting. So we approved the Constitution last semester towards the end, and then approved the bylaws this semester. And so we sent out both the documents connected together. And I'm going to get a motion to approve both of them. Nothing's been changed other than I added our seal as a watermark to the back of the paper, and then what also will change after this is I will hyperlink the YouTube channel for meeting minutes to the actual Constitution page. That way, if you want to look up to see when it was approved, you'll be able to hear us talking right now for proof that it was actually passed. So, can I get a motion?
Motion.
Any? Yeah, second?
I was gonna say, yeah, second.
All in favor? All right, awesome. Thanks, everyone. I just want to, I know it's kind of weird technical, but I just want to make sure we're on sure footing as far as that goes. We put a lot of work into that, so I hate for someone to try and kick it apart over some procedural or some other like silly thing. So,
For the record, the motion passed.
yeah, for the record, motion passed unanimously, right, with no abstention. We go now to new business, right? Is that where I'm at?
That's where we're at.
Brand new business?
Yep.
I apologize in advance, it's probably a long meeting. Do you think you can see it from there, or do you want us to? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Did you want to talk about the administration resolution?
can you read it and I can just answer questions?
Yeah, okay.
We sent it out.
All right, we sent out earlier, so we had it, and I think, John, you saw the couple of the edits that we did.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do a read through. This is a response, if everyone remembers, the long conversation we had last week about our general feeling that even though we have a good per capita number for administrators on campus, that after further review, it's like that because they make more than most other administrators in the state in similar positions. And so let me exit out of this real quick. I'll read the resolution and we can put on the floor for questions. This is in recognition of the current state of Illinois budget stalemate and the ongoing effects of the budget stalemate on institutions of higher education with the state. The Graduate and Professional Student Council, as the constituency body for the graduate and professional students at Southern Illinois University Carbondale, recognized by the SIU System Board of Trustees, makes the following resolution to voice our concerns with the leadership of the campus at large. Whereas it is the belief of the student body that our tuition and fee payments are the very lifeblood funding the U.S. SIU campuses, and it is the belief that the student body is paying for our education, and whereas it is only the continued party politics within the state legislature causing issue, it is also in our own administration, whom also bears the highest burden of keeping our schools open and student learning. And whereas the Carbondale campus has been hemorrhaging money and making use of emergency funds prior to exhausting all other options, and whereas there is a fundamental breakdown in the communication between senior administration of the Carbondale campus and the student body, which has resulted in a perception of self-preservation among the administration over the interests of the student body at large, and whereas the Southern Illinois University Springfield campus took steps already to prepare for the possible fiscal risk and lacked state funding by agreeing to split the effect among all staff with a decrease in salary income for all administration and faculty by up to as much as 20%. And whereas Southern Illinois University Edwardsville took similar steps to prepare for the possible financial risk, and whereas the Assistant President, Board of Trustees, and Chancellor, in conjunction with the recognized constituency bodies, are tasked with the financial management and direction of the schools, and whereas the current news reports on the financial future of SIU system and the Carbondale campus specifically have created a major concern for students and faculty, and whereas the plan highlighted by President Dunn and Chancellor Colwell of the Carbondale campus is not in the best interest of the student body, and whereas the perceived steps taken to forego renewal of faculty contracts, layoff of tenured faculty, and reduction of support staff positions places a burden upon the student body that will cause further egress of students to schools offering more balanced and staffed programs. And whereas the mission of SIU embraces a unique tradition of access and opportunity, inclusive excellence, innovation in research and creativity, and outstanding teaching focused on nurturing student success. As a nationally ranked public research university and regional economic catalyst, we create and exchange knowledge to shape future leaders, improve our communities, and transform lives. And whereas news reports indicate that while SIU Carbondale may have the smallest number of chancellors or administration per capita, we have to switch it, on campus. They're among the highest paid in the state. Whereas President Dunn, according to Illinois newspaper articles, is the second highest paid university president within the state of Illinois. And whereas the talk of fiscal responsibility has led SIU to reduce the number of programs available, cut or fail to renew faculty contracts, and force reduction of budgetary spending in all schools. And whereas the students at large feel that all staff, including administration, trustees, chancellors, and faculty, tenured or not, should share in the tightening of current spending. And whereas the effect of the proposed cuts to administration will have minimal effect to the style and lifestyle of living for most of the affected employees within the state. Be it resolved, therefore, that GPSC formally requests an immediate action in reduction of all administration, trustee, and president salaries. This isn't the... It's not the one that I showed you. I know it's not, because it didn't change. By 40%, and this is all faculty. Yeah.
There's two in there.
This is a different version. This
There's
is the
two
one
in
that
there.
we
You
emailed
put up the wrong one.
I put the one you told me to put up. That's why I said it's the wrong
The
one.
change in language says what, 5%, correct?
10% for the administration.
Yeah.
There you
Hold
go.
on. Which one is it? This one?
That's the agenda right now.
I mean, sorry. Hold on. Sorry, technical difficulties here.
Executive. You want to see that one?
This one? Yeah. Sorry. Alright, we'll go down. So again, so be it resolved that GPSC formally requests an immediate action in reduction of all administration, trustee, and president salaries by 10%, and all faculty, both tenure and on contract, instead of taking mandatory furloughs or loss of employment from non-contract renewal, receive a 5% cut in salaries until such time that Illinois state funding, not stopgap measures, clarification, is restored in full to SIUC. Furthermore, request and immediately implement a cost savings plan that aims to adequately reorganize the top end of the administration costs as it relates to the ever-dwindling student population. That internal spending of money be the first avenue for all programs before spent into the community businesses, i.e. events and social gatherings now to be held on campus, and that all institution travel be restricted to only employees traveling, not spouses or families, and more conservative methods of travel are sought. And that all spending not pertinent to the interests of the school are at the expense of traveling employee, president, trustee, administrator, and faculty, for example. And all food expenses be placed on a per diem limit approved by the trustee board each year. Until further balanced fiscal spending achieves, or until reserve money spent returns and the school operating spending maintains levels in the black. Be it further resolved, SIU Carbondale and sister campuses return to the founding of the I don't know, it's because they got some window section on the other thing.
There it is.
Huh? Founding of the school principals as research institution centered around the mission statement of the school, and that funding research is evaluated before reinstating the profitability and return investment to the school. Be it further resolved that expansion programs and offering be reviewed further and possibly instituted to ensure continued growth and enrollment numbers on all SIU campuses. A system-wide student health insurance plan that, for example, a system-wide health insurance plan that leverages all SIU students to get even better health care for even lower prices. Be it further resolved that SIU campuses will expand into the production of sale of medical marijuana as instituted by the state of Illinois for the sole purpose of profit generation within the schools, and opportunities available into research for the agricultural studies program, medical research programs, and any other forms of research used at the benefit of the schools, as an example. Questions?
And discussion.
Discussion?
Okay, so let me tell you what we can't do. We can do nothing with a faculty contract. We can make the recommendation, but as per the contract ratified by the Faculty Association, the FA would have to we'd have to declare financial exigency for them to mess with that, or they'd have to reopen the wages portion of the FA contract, which they are not going to do, considering how hard they fought for it. Second, you can't furlough tenured faculty. There's nothing in their contract that says you can do that. The only people at this institution whose contracts allow for that are civil service. NTTs can't take furloughs. They're usually just their term contracts.
We get agency status.
On the statement made by President Dunn, Chancellor Caldwell indicated furloughs for all faculty.
That's weird because I don't know how they expect to get that to work without
That's why the option I laid out originally was for a larger cut of income negotiated with the faculty, but administration are not negotiated.
Well, the
That's
faculty.
why I placed it. I think it was 40% for administration and 20% for faculty.
Yeah, but if you do that, you're basically when you say if you do that, you're basically canning all the NTTs. They'll just quit. Like they don't make that much as it is.
Well, that's what I said. We can change the wording of the second point to negotiation of contracts. I mean, I'm not expecting a large cut of faculty as much as I'm expecting a large cut of the overpaid administration.
Okay.
I figured if you ask for more and get less, it's better. It's kind of like when we approach, when students, organizations approach the FAB board, they ask for $1,500 to get $200. You know.
I understand what you're saying. My only theory is that we need. I think so. As it sits right now,
And that's why
we need.
Go ahead.
I think we need the faculty, senate, and general on our side more so than not to take on. I would say, I mean, they're our biggest ally if we are to take any sort of fight to the administration.
Well, let's change the wording to propose a negotiation to the faculty to take the 5% cut. Reinstate the administration cut to 40%. And I wanted to include on the marijuana aspect today, a bill is introduced in legislation in the state of Illinois to recreational marijuana in the state.
My recommendation would be that we leave out faculty altogether, considering both of the faculty unions just finished closing their contracts. And as somebody who has to sit in the room and do that shit, it takes forever. They're not going to want to reopen it.
I agree, but I think an issue still remains that we need faculty to be pushing on the state representatives to pass this budget.
What if we do something like, I'm thinking about faculty, is that you've seen the board of trustees, they're still handing out raises for faculty.
Well, you're talking about the stuff that happened in December, at the December meeting where they appointed a dean of the School of Business and the rest of that?
You know what I'm saying? They're still handing out some, like tenured, like going from associate to full, like raises and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have
to ask for a freeze in that, or they still in
that would damage our academic programs. There are some things that associate professors can do or cannot do that full professors can.
We need a full professor who's not get paid.
Then they wouldn't do it. They just quit. So for example, an associate professor cannot be chair of a department and serve in particular functions on subcommittees that a full professor can. And if you say, well, we want to make you a full professor, that's like saying we want to make you an NTT, telling me that they want to make me an NTT, but are only going to pay me a 50% graduate stipend. Nobody in their right mind would do it. Well, that's illegal too, but we'll just put that aside. I'm okay with most of this, but we gotta leave the faculty out of it, particularly the NTTs, because aside from the AP,
What's the group perception on it?
all right. I mean,
Hello?
what do you guys think?
I'm fine with leaving the faculty out and keeping up to the administration based on the contracts being, just recently fought for, keeping that in mind, and how hard they would argue against it potentially, just stalemate.
What would the trustees do?
Take a group suggestion is the faculty want to remove the faculty portion.
I think that's from what I'm getting is the consensus. What I would say though too is maybe we add something in. Granted, this is the first read through, so we can pass this at our next meeting.
Here.
with Caldwell. Yeah, Caldwell will be present at our next meeting.
How about that?
So this will be very poignant. I just want to point out. So we'll be presenting this for a vote at the meeting where the chancellor is here to talk to us about the
You should do
financial
this
crisis.
before he speaks.
Okay, are we not gonna present this at the trustee board?
Board of trustees.
It would be inadvisable to do so because the BOT meeting, like, if they are actually gonna make, and Brandon's gonna talk about this, if they actually wanna engage weird emergency stuff at that BOT meeting, they have to suspend the rules and violate their own policies because they have not fulfilled anything.
They have it on their, sorry, they have it on their agenda, but only as a notice item. So they're just gonna reference DD and move on. That's all they're gonna say.
Yeah, there'll be no discussion of it.
There will be no discussion, even if I raise my, we can get the student trustee to try, but the fact that like to pull from an omnibus, they're actually probably for the omnibus.
Yeah, they'll omnibus it as a notice without discussion to avoid potential hangups. But in so doing, they will have given the board notice, which frees up Chancellor Caldwell and President Dunn to actually follow the appropriate steps. And we want them to do that because if they make a mistake anywhere in those steps, we can hold them accountable and none of the financial things they want to do can go through. They have to resubmit any document where there's an error.
I would say instead of if we're going to take up faculty, and this is something you alluded to, or Brad alluded to, and all kind of talked about last week was SIU's definition of administrator is different than everybody else's. That's what lends to its lower percentage of per capita percentage anyways. So we could either call for the administration and then qualify with as defined by IDHE, not SIUC. So that way that accounts for a whole lot more. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, gotcha.
That way it's not just the four big high-hanging fruits, so to speak, like in actually a broad spectrum thing. My question would be is, in looking at the things, I'm assuming I already know the answer, but the next tier layer of people of all who are highest paid, from what I can tell, is all needs. And we're okay with that.
No, so if we're counting provost and senior, provosts and
We can
senior.
make more than the vice chancellor.
Yeah, that's true, because most vice chancellors oversee ops areas when they're not in academic affairs, because they're drawing percentage from a faculty salary.
We should make more than provost.
Well, most deans make more than provost because they have a larger committee load. Put simple, well, I mean, I would be not opposed to shafting the deans because I tell you what,
I personally want to.
okay.
I'd like to see deans take some sort of as, not a hit, but to voluntarily take a pay reduction that helps out.
All right. So I say, what I'm getting right now is what do you think? I just saw that look. What do you think? Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm still processing.
Okay.
So let me put it this way, if we change it so that we remove the faculty and say, force deans to take chairs and director salaries, which, is mean, but it's worth doing.
When we originally discussed this, we had discussed that the chancellors, the deans, provost, president, the top tier.
Yeah.
And so I think that it needs to remain the top tier, because that's what we originally
Yes.
discussed.
What the definition of that, would they include the deans as well? Does that include?
Yeah. So I would say,
To answer Liz's question, that's a fuzzy area because deans, and I really hate this, right? So deans are technically still like faculty. They just get paid more like chairs and directors because they're doing additional committee and service work. Provost Ford, while she's still faculty and still teaches, is classified under IBHE as an administrator. Mira Komaraju is not. At least that's what Provost Ford has told me. I can ask Dave Delala for clarification because he's like the final word on this, or Jim Allen. But theoretically, if we'd have to specify senior administrations to include deans, because deans aren't technically administrators.
so
So we basically be creating our own definition.
Oh, no, we'd just be including someone else in the percentage.
What I was gonna be saying though too is that, and it's on there, John, we need to put a footnote to it, or even add it as a graph, is, they got it breakdown percentage wise, so when you really look at all the dean salaries, vice chancellors, and the higher up paid people, and relate that to a percentage of people money, like a percentage on money making level or whatever, like all the people we're talking about are in the top 95% of income earners in Illinois. Type thing. So like you can relate it to that level if you want some sort of baseline to cut it off.
Yeah, that works.
Or like compare it to the national average.
Actually, yeah. And when you start comparing the national average though, because we've already seen a trend down the last couple of years, Illinois is different than everybody else already. So everyone's still a little bit lower. Like people are making a lot more money than everyone else. So it'll weaken our argument.
Is there a way to put in here somewhere that grad students live in poverty essentially? We do, we live at the poverty level.
Yeah.
And then say something about the student fees that we have to pay back, also cut the amount that we make.
Well, that is a contract thing that GAU is currently negotiating, a cap on student fees for the duration of the new contract. That's a thing that we got in the almost got in the last contract, and we're working on it. And any such cap would apply broadly. So we, as GPSC, we can advocate for that kind of thing, but you didn't hear it from me because I didn't say that. Well, I did say GPSC can theoretically advocate for that kind of thing as it's in the best interest of the graduate students, but I would not put it in this resolution. I would draft a separate resolution that says, given the current budget, blah, 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 the shrinking amount of appointments, blah, 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 right? And requests that a cap on graduate student fees be implemented in light of the fact that, we're all starving.
I think you actually can though in a way. So when we're going as the whereas part, I can think of it as simple as that whereas graduate students with assistantships annual pay, make on average $19,000 to $20,000 below the poverty line, ranging from $19,000 to $22,000 a year. Whereas the federal government is continuing to
Second whereas.
Yeah. continuing to
Put some numbers in there.
yeah.
I can dig up those numbers for you.
Okay, I think that's, in terms of outlining our base, and I think we can even add a whereas outlining the federal government's new policy guidelines as it relates to student loan repayment. Because if we're all sitting here living off student loans, and now the fact that when we leave, it's going to be way harder to pay them off, I think that has some sort of bearing on it as well.
My only concern with that is this is a big resolution.
Yeah.
That issue might get buried in the other stuff.
I think if you want to do another resolution, I agree with you. I think what she's saying though is persuasive.
That's fine. We can put it in here. My suggestion would be when they come back and say, no, we refuse to do this, we reissue a resolution that says you refuse to do that. We want a fee cap then. All right, just as an aside.
All right. So, any other discussion on the floor?
The fee cap.
I'll summarize what we all kind of talked about before we move on for us. That way we can have an idea of what it reflects and make sure it's solid for the next meeting.
You pointed at me again.
I thought you were sure.
Yeah, I did. Okay, yeah, I can't see that. I don't see. Again, as it was pointed out, this is a pretty big resolution on its face. I don't know that there's any. I guess the short version is I don't see any point in including that the portion of the resolution about the medical marijuana or the marijuana cultivation.
I see you laughing, John.
Not that I think it's a great idea. If they could grow some pot and make some money, that'd be fantastic. The problem is that it's a non-starter. That's DOA, man, because they're going to jeopardize federal funding if they undertake that activity, even if it's legal in the state, they're still going to jeopardize their federal funding because they're engaged in what is still federally illegal activity. So that's not going to go anywhere. And I think it just dilutes the substance of what we're trying to get at. To have that included there on the end is kind of a footnote. Oh, by the way, grow pot.
Well, if we're gonna go that tone, then that would include all. That's pretty much.
Maybe you could put those items in a separate resolution?
The pot.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
No, I mean,
That's exactly what I was talking about, in addition to the other things that Brandon highlighted.
Yeah, the health insurance example.
that's why I was asking, because I wanted to be sure that we're talking about like the bottom half of the weed and some of the other things that Brandon is talking about.
So basically, these two if I get these two paragraphs.
Okay.
Now it's
So those two paragraphs.
these two paragraphs would go. Last two paragraphs, John.
Why is the second to last paragraph moved?
Last two?
Well, they both detract from the actual argument.
That's right.
Oh, he said, no. He's asking for expansion in programs and offerings be reviewed further and possibly instituted, which isn't a bad idea. And that's what Dean Lee has been asking for a long time.
I understand it, but we're talking about. So if we're going narrowly attacking or making a point about administration salaries. I'm not saying that was. I mean,
No, fair enough.
that was my
Okay,
idea.
some of the people that are not potential attorneys.
John, we can make a separate resolution for reinstatement of research program.
I'm just saying, like, we could argue about this.
I mean, John, so you want me to draft a separate resolution that includes those two paragraphs as a resolution?
Well, we can change the wording of the weed one to be a suggestion of options for business research, but, and as far as the federal funding, we're not jeopardizing an aspect of medical research because the federal government is funding medical research facilities for years on that aspect.
I know he addressed what I just said. I didn't hear a word of it.
Now you said the federal government's been funding medical marijuana research for decades, and
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but under this current administration, that may not continue, or it may not go so smoothly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
DOJ's expressed like they will continue prosecuting.
I think the word I would use would be animosity toward.
so the recommendation is that we remove those.
I say those things that speak that are
Yes, John,
generally outside the scope.
sections.
There's a couple whereases too, John, where I think we could actually make it two resolutions or you can present them at the same time, but just separate.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's John make a separate resolution for reinstatement of research grants.
All right. I mean,
I
Oh,
can work
no.
on it to the best of my ability, but.
Clay?
Yeah, I don't know, it might be silly, but I'm gonna back it up a little bit from you and everything we've been talking about, because I've been thinking about this for days at this point. I still don't even really understand what the argument is in this resolution. I list a great deal of things as far as, whereas here's a sort of condition right now, and then it has a number of bullet points as far as this is something that is either being requested or should happen or could happen. But I don't understand the thesis of all of those elements and how they come together. I just don't.
I could craft one for you.
And so, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think if you apply all those things, the idea is that the administration is hiding behind the guys that they got the lowest per capita in the state, but in all actuality, they make more than everyone else. So we still are upside down when it comes to administrative pay, and that if we're in this big emergency state, which we are literally walking step by step to go through procedurally, then the third highest person in the state, and including a couple others, should
Be
taking a cut as well. Especially given where we are, right? I mean, the reason why I'm okay with making $20,000 a year is I can make it work in Carbondale. It's not great, but if you're making $450,000+ a year, I think you can afford to take a cut out of the goodness of your heart.
I want to ask that. So 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, we had all discussed that there's a real issue, and I wish Donald was here, because he made some very valid points, and that there's a real issue with this administration, pointing fingers of why there are cracks, and why we're losing money, and why we have to take money from other places, and just we're funneling money all over the place, and no one knows why. And it was then that we said, if we don't, like, at least we need to make a resolution on behalf of our constituency, because we don't see anything getting better. This is just, news reports and everything, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And that's what we discussed 2 weeks ago. And thereafter, last week, President Allen put out a statement, a media statement, saying that they need to cut $30 million from Siuc campus or borrow from Edwards.
No, not or.
So, and. So we addressed that there's a real issue and that we didn't feel like it was going to get better. And I would say that our concerns were very valid, considering maybe a week later, this new statement goes out, we need to cut $30 million. We've already cut a lot of money from this campus. There have been people that have left over the issue. Our faculty is even suffering with cuts to their own healthcare.
No faculty
Insurance,
travel is allowed.
No faculty travel. And so.
Except the president and his wife.
So when our faculty is suffering and they leave, that is even a huger, that's just a really huge issue a bigger issue to the students here. Because no more students are gonna come. Your classes that you may want to take next semester, they may get cut if the faculty for them leave. So we needed to do something about it. So this is the beginning of what we had addressed in that meeting. And then we see just a week later that, yes, they're going to try to cut money, but not take a cut in salaries or.
Actually, hold on a second. So to echo Sheena's statements, and since I get to play inside baseball, this isn't just us. Like, the faculty are particularly concerned that administrative staffing levels have not fallen in step with the reductions of funding, to the point where some of their constituency bodies are ramping up efforts to address it. But if I'm going to be real honest, nothing has come of those efforts. No visible demonstration, no collective discussion, nothing has come from the efforts. They talked about it, they just haven't done anything, right? So for us to come out and say, you administrators need to take a hit, would be to do what the faculty is unwilling to do. They probably should be doing, but you can hear that.
Most pertinent aspects of that, in the sense of, look, it's gotten bad enough now that this should be on the table. That's what I understand is the thesis. That's a really poorly worded argument, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, well.
In the way that it's laid out, not in the sense that it's bad enough now that, look, it's time to seriously consider cutting some of the administrative pay because it doesn't make sense. That isn't a bad argument. But the way that resolution is worded to get to that thesis, that's horribly written.
I think the issue is the understanding that when you write resolutions, political style, writing stuff and talk, writing paper and thesis statements. So the point you get across is you identify issues and concerns and points in the whereas portion, and then the be it resolved portion suggests the answers to fix these points and problems that you addressed.
And in that structure, the points at the end and the be it resolved don't actually address the things in the whereas, is exactly my point. How in the hell are the bullet points actually realistic solutions to the stuff that's outlined in the front? But if it's whereas we've had to make substantial cuts and there is no foreseeable immediate growth in the revenue to the university, be it resolved, it's time to address administrative pay. Boom, done.
Okay.
So I would think that the motion that we should entertain is that in spirit, we are in favor of what the resolution is saying. In practice, the resolution needs to be redrafted for clarity, to include a cap on graduate assistant fees or graduate student fees, not just graduate assistance fees, because let's be honest, to strike out reference to capping faculty salary to include deans and administration. Right?
A better definition of administration, which includes deans and etc.
Okay.
And also,
Do you guys have notes on this too?
Yeah,
I'll take notes.
Yeah, I've got it.
I think also included would be, we need to list the example that we did ourselves, because we start off the year by taking a 35% cut in the executive officers for GPSC. That should be, I think that's a good way to lay it out, in as a whereas.
Yeah, I mean, even in the sense of building the whereas argument, as far as the recommendations you want to make, that's a more direct way of going about it. You can literally list all of the different things that have been cut.
Yeah.
But yet, then we haven't seen anything done with the administrative pay.
Yeah.
All right. That speaks directly to what you're actually trying to see accomplished.
So can I propose a motion then?
Yes.
So motion to redraft the current resolution to expand the administration to include deans, to strike out the faculty, to include GA fee caps, to clarify our statement, and to include our 35% cut at the beginning of fiscal year 17, as well as the additional cuts to the university in the whereas.
Okay.
And also striking the weed.
Also striking the weed.
I can take the lead in the grants and in turn creating a sister resolution along with that to address that theme. That has its own argument, which is I think part of the reason why it's so convoluted, because that's really two resolutions.
Okay.
All right. Joss, what's that? Second, all in favor? All right, awesome.
Sweet.
All right, we move down to the transgender shocking incident. I'm gonna let John explain briefly, and then I will follow up.
Point, I gotta exit out, guys. I'm going for a test.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Bye, John.
Get well. Invitation here from the hospital room. So, yeah, just gonna close it.
Or will you? So do you want me to explain this?
Well, you can just.
Okay, so basically
stick with that term, and then I'll explain what.
Okay, so essentially what happened was over the weekend, while I was sitting in an airport, I got an email from an undergraduate student who, or an email that I was CC'd on with Lori Stetler and some other officials concerning transphobic chalkings outside of Lentz Hall on campus. The students, a senator in USG, requested immediate action. Lori Stetler sent some folks to spray off the chalking, but where I'm concerned, this is doubly problematic because several weeks ago we requested that the administration publicly explain its position vis-a-vis I actually have to refer to him politely, don't I?
Yes.
President Trump's rescission of the Obama guidelines concerning trans students. This is important because one of the things that the university has done is begin the process of constructing inclusive bathrooms across campus, starting with the rec center and expanding outwards to other facilities. And if there is no federal guideline or federal directive to do so, the concern of some of our constituents was that the institution would simply stop. Verbally, administration has said, yeah, we're going to do that, but that wasn't good enough, which goes to what Brandon is going to say.
In speaking with the chancellor this afternoon, a couple hours ago, basically reiterating to him what everything Jonathan said, and going back to the email that he sent just a couple months ago now.
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
A month and a half ago, that we needed a statement, and he further again expressed that they have no intention to back down from either policies or things that they put in place. He apologized for not having a statement already out, but just that he said we're not even saying not any good reason other than the fact of everything else that's going on. But he did assure that there will be a statement backing their support for the continued upholding of the policies and places that it already had in place, that they don't plan to go away anytime soon. And so for right now, we will take that for its worth. But if we, well, like anything else, if we don't hear or see that policy soon, we will probably, I believe it's already been talked about, at least three of us on the entire executive council, but author a similar op-ed as we did when we had the Blue Lives Matter shocking last semester, and more. Because I gave a very short timeline, and if he doesn't tell us something soon, we will. And we admonishing the administration for not having anything done will be a part of that if they don't say anything. But you can't just say something that everyone needs to know. So
I would say by the end of the week, if they've got nothing.
in the week, okay. Let's say if we don't have anything by our next executive council meeting by Tuesday, we will draft that that statement and then take the council a draft. I know you guys. And we would have if had not the chancellor would have called me 3 times today. At first, he missed my first call because I was picking up my kids. So it's not like if he had his attention, he expressed fervently that he is serious and he did sincerely apologize as chancellors in any administrative position can, I guess. So that's where we're at on that. Any questions or concerns?
For the record, they got this email February 22nd. We met with Lori like the following week. They've had a month to release something. I don't feel that giving them an additional 5 days is, well, actually giving them to the end of the week is being nice.
But yeah, we were also told by the Lori that they hadn't planned, and so they just hadn't made a statement, right?
All right, fair enough.
So, if you guys don't see something, if we see a message or get a message, whether it's a memo or on the website, we will forward it to you. Otherwise, we will forward to you our op-ed, unless anyone has any cause or concern about such. Yeah. Discussion about that? Is anyone good? We need to do more? We could do more. What could we do? Sort of sit in. No? Okay. All right.
At this point, semester have to take the time to study.
I agree with you. It's one of those, which I also make a point that it's very ironic that stuff always happens at the around final time, right? But that's the world we live in, and so you just gotta try to battle through as best you can. Moving down to the chancellor and or staff visit next meeting. As some of you may have read on the president's website memo or read Chancellor Caldwell's memo about actually going into emergency status by the end of the semester so they can start laying off possibly civil service.
The civil service
AP staff.
Well, civil service AP staff do not have a no furlough, no layoff clause in their contracts. Your GA contracts have no language about that, so they can't do it without violating the contract. Faculty contracts are ironclad.
So that being said, actually, and as the president posted in a hyperlink as to rules in order to facilitate emergency status, he has to consult with all the constituency head groups. And so I spent about 4.5 hours and meeting with all the constituency heads last Thursday afternoon. And we were notified that that was step 1 of our notice for the process. I asked him what step 2, and the step 2 will be that his staff, or all of the above, will be visiting each separate constituency to answer any and all questions. Not relate in any way, and to their credit, I guess, is they're being very forthcoming. They're actually leveraging a sense of transparency, answering every question you ask them, except for the big one, which is, I'll get more into that in a minute. But so, anyways, our next meeting will have them there, and we would imagine that would probably take up most of the meeting. So we decided that had been planned on being our last meeting of the year, and it was going to be elections and our potluck that we normally do, and we would think that would be a really, really, really long meeting. So if you go to the website, just tell me. I can't know without looking. Okay, so instead of doing an emergency meeting like in between elections or anything like that, and it's a long couple months, okay? We are going to tack on an extra meeting at the end before finals, and there won't be a week in between. So after our next meeting, the following week we'll have another meeting, and that will be our elections, and it'll also be where we present the research awards, and we'll be doing it in the President's Hall, like we did with the Town Hall last semester. We feel like that had a really good place, good place to send it off. And instead of potluck this year, because it's the research awards, we will be probably getting catering again, like bandanas like we had last time, and just have a similar setup, and that's where we'll do the elections and the awards ceremony. Any questions about that?
Do you have to be present to submit to run for office?
You have to be present, yes, and most of you are pretty cut, so some lawsuits are starting to close, so maybe jot our names. You can't miss any more than 2 meetings in a row without a proxy. Once established as a council member to vote, and you have to be there in person last meeting if you want to vote. I would say we want at the end of the meeting, you want to hold open nominations at the end of the meeting. Yeah, we're gonna wait till next week. All right, so we'll wait till next meeting to do the nominations. So it's the president, vice presidents, and 4 grad council reps. We have 2 of them here right now. Sarah's sick. Yeah, John was here.
All those commissions are
Yes.
Yeah, all of them will be.
Me and Dinah are here.
Yeah.
And John, but there are students here.
Yeah, there's 2 out of 4 here.
Okay.
As myself and Mr. Lyles III will not be here next year. I'll be here, but I won't be here. We will be conducting the election. We'll be more or less the election committee. Will facilitate in time and do all those things. That's in the Constitution. It's been basically the protocol, whatever it is, if the officers don't rerun, they're the ones who run the elections. I don't think I've seen one where all 3 decide to run again. So, good luck when you guys come back. So I'll be here. Just joking. Kidding. I'm going to segue down, since I'm already talking about the chancellor's meetings above your report, since we're already on this. I'll leave you on wait until you're on committee.
Just let me get through this damn thing.
All right, so I will, everything we're talking about, the money and the immediate emergency status stuff, I'll talk about that when we actually get to the thing. We have a lot to talk about in terms of what I heard at that meeting, what it means for us and all that stuff. And so we got to let John talk about grad cancel, and then I'll talk. So John.
All right. So, fun. Welcome to the Jack Flower Show. I'll try to make this quick. It actually should go pretty quick since I don't have to talk about anything that the Chancellor said, because Brandon's going to do all of that. So, at Grad Council Executive, just a quick rundown. Vice Chancellor Jim Garvey has a problem with the Da Vinci Day. The faculty never show up. I don't exactly know what we can do about that except advertise. The graduate forum is on the Friday of Da Vinci Week, and only 50 graduate students are participating. To be fair, this is not uncommon given the shrinking graduate student population on campus and the shakeup with the research days in the past couple of years. Nothing has changed in the grad research arenas. Jim Garvey still has no money. Provost Ford Here we go. So when asked about the state budget, Provost said, "We know nothing about the budget." As we all are aware, the Senate and the legislature failed to reach a compromise. Therefore, Provost Ford said, "We're all simply hoping for a stopgap." However, the governor has said that there will be no more stopgaps until he gets anything in his budget. So where planning is concerned, the provost stated, "Without stopgaps, planning for the year or planning for beyond the year is impossible." She clarified the fiscal year. Any planning without 40% of our budget is impossible. So right now we do not have 40% of our budget. So this is all complicated by internal issues. So Judy Marshall, who deals with all of the budget planning for the institution, loaded data into the university's budget that would show a full year budget to prepare for the possibility of actually having a budget and to generate estimates. So however, deans and other administrators are operating as if these numbers are real. According to Provost Ford and Vice Chancellor Garvey, the assumption in the Chancellor's cabinet was that everybody knows these numbers are not real. However, Vice Chancellor Garvey doesn't think that everybody's acting in that way. So he stated, "Every cent that we spend, we cannot rely on the state to pay us back at this point, even with a stopgap." So additionally, we may be looking at potential problems with recruitment and retention outside of the obvious ongoing effects of the budget stalemate. So as you recall, around this time last year, the president gave an interview that said if we don't get stopgaps, the university will begin to cut programs and non-essential structures. So according to Provost Ford, this had the following fact, and this is an extended quote. "Within minutes, the phones in administration or admissions lit up asking about programs. By the end of the day, we started hearing students asking if they should transfer. When we looked at the numbers in that fall, the numbers of the freshmen and sophomores were down, so our increases in retention were not enough to offset those losses. But simply the statement that the president released will have a disastrous impact on the efforts of the institution to recruit and retain freshmen and sophomores. In terms of recruitment and retention on the graduate and undergraduate side, the provost stated, and I quote, 'This is the worst thing that I could imagine at this time because we can do nothing to combat it.' If he comes out with this statement, all we can do is damage control. With reference to graduate students, she stated, if they leave, they will go. We can do nothing to convince them that we're not going to be another Chicago state. As for what any responses to the budget situation from her office might look like, she stated the following: if this budget situation continues, some of us will have to think the unthinkable, which she presented as the elimination of units that have an ancillary connection to academics. In terms of how she is thinking about the process, she phrased it in the following manner: can we afford to support an entity where faculty have a 25%, where other units have a 50% and losing money? That is, they would engage in a comparison among programs in line with the recommendations in the JTF report, presumably to ensure that this entire situation was done equitably. I will discuss prioritization later, and that's a crap show.
I would just skip.
You want to skip the prioritization thing?
I'm just making note that nothing is
Oh, okay, fair enough. To conclude, Provost Ford states, we've avoided having to make the decision to shut something down, but if this continues, we might not have that option. When pushed on the lack of planning by the administration, by me, she answered in a way that is likely honest from her perspective. There is no way to predict this and plan for it until we reach this crisis point. There was an expectation that they, meaning Springfield, would be adults and do their jobs. So it has been recommended that I skip program prioritization because I haven't extended like 2 pages on program prioritization, but suffice it to say they're not using it because they cannot collect the data. Provost Ford said there is no way, given the staffing at institutional research at its level, that we can get clean data. Therefore, they're just not going to use the prioritization report, which is interesting considering at the last Dean's Council retreat in November, the deans developed a methodology of weighting the data gathered that is different from the methodology recommended in the JTF report. Provost Ford asked Tomas Velasco, chair of the Graduate Council, not to circulate the dean's weighting strategy to the rest of the Graduate Council because Provost Ford did not feel that it was ready for public consumption. As an aside, the email she sent to Chancellor Caldwell and senior administration concerning prioritization, I got a copy of it. So I will send that to Brandon, and Brandon can decide what he wants to do with that. Yeah, I got a copy of that. The last thing is that the deans had the idea to solicit feedback from chairs in the form of ranking their faculty in their department from 1 to 5 on the basis of tenure requirements. Faculty productivity data would be collected and placed in a system that would rank said faculty member on a 1 to 5 scale, and the total numbers would likely be combined to determine the position of individual programs in the ranking. This would also apply to NTTs, so there's that. Graduate students get left out of this ranking because apparently we don't do any productivity stuff. So Dean Lee, so that's all that I have from the provost. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. So Dean Lee, apparently the faculty mentorship awards have completed. If you've heard anything about it, you know more than I do, since I heard nothing. I'm not even kidding about this. Graduate Council has new elections, but we don't care about that because we elect our own reps to the board or to Graduate Council. The Graduate School has completed the receipt of the outstanding dissertation and thesis awards. There are 5 dissertations, and the Graduate School is beginning the evaluation. Finally, they're in the process of searching for the diversity coordinator. I mentioned this because it was on a resolution that got the ball rolling on that. And Lily's on that committee, by the way. So ed policies, and this is the fun part. I'm going to skip everything about faculty senate because I mentioned that in the resolution. Wow, actually, that's like half that report. So the last thing is I've drafted resolution on access to research facilities, which should address the continuing issues with keys, because Vice Chancellor Kevin Bain told myself and Dean Lee to go kick rocks. The resolution should have its first reading at Graduate Council. Ed Policies is also kicking around a conversation about changing the high achiever rate for graduate students, which would enable out-of-state graduate students to pay the in-state tuition rate. We have to mess with this because there's no other way to change out-of-state rates for graduate students. The research committee has drafted a resolution for a framework for a faculty mentorship program. If you recall, one of the first resolutions submitted from GPSC to Graduate Council was to push the council to create a faculty mentorship program due to the issues facing graduate students in getting mentorship from faculty. So next Graduate Council will have the first reading of that resolution, with the second reading to occur at the Grad Council meeting in May. So to be clear, it took them an entire year to do this. I'm a little bit annoyed about that. Some miscellaneous stuff from Graduate Council. Lisette Chevalier will be our new Associate Provost for Academic Affairs. She officially assumes that role at the April 6th board meeting. Jim Allen has been appointed by the President at a 40% salary as Vice President for Academic Affairs in the Office of the President. April 13th in the Illinois Room, there will be a general faculty meeting with the Grad Council and Faculty Senate at 3 p.m. The Chancellor and the Provost will be making remarks, and apparently they want students to attend as well. April 10th, Terry Bryant and Schimpf will be on campus. Apparently the faculty got them to agree to an open town hall at the university because they did not want to be heckled by the public. They want the students present at the town hall for asking questions. We cleared up the grievance appeals, I believe. We have all of our students for that. There will be a resolution coming out at some point recommending a revision to the graduate student academic grievance policy because in the process of actually doing these things, there was no clarity as to what we were actually supposed to be doing. So we're going to be looking at that. The problem with that is even if that resolution is read at the next Graduate Council meeting, it will need a second reading at the May Graduate Council meeting, and we can do nothing with it until Graduate Council reconvenes at the beginning of the fall semester next year, which is a problem because we will have an extremely short turnaround time to do any modifications to that policy given when the graduate catalog has to be in. This really annoys me. I'm annoyed by a lot of things. So I get to skip all of that Chancellor Caldwell thing. So it is on you. Diversity Council report. We can't talk about that because we haven't met and
Haven't done.
nope, not at all.
Good.
Yeah, because we meet again on the 10th.
So you're gonna be on Monday.
We can meet on Monday. I'm a little bit steamed about that.
So we'll,
Okay.
oh, it has to be, sorry.
John, could you please clarify what you are happy about?
Let's see. I'm happy that the Graduate Council has a resolution that has been drafted and passed recommending support for graduate students and protecting graduate student funding. It is my intention to, in my graduate or my GPSC report to Graduate Council on Thursday, force them to take action in line with that resolution to protect graduate student funding. They can say no, but if they say no, then they are demonstrating an unwillingness to follow resolutions that are inconvenient and therefore basically demonstrating that they have no real authority, right? Or they're unwilling to exercise their authority when it does not benefit them. This would be a problem for them. There are a couple of other, or that same resolution is the one that I'm going to invoke in support of the key or the research access resolution. I guess that's not a thing that I'm happy about. Well, Brandon will talk about the other thing that I'm happy about, the open forum. You know anything about that? Oh shit, I will be right back. Oh yeah, you do. You wrote the times down for that thing. Are you going to talk about
Oh, yeah.
Brandon will talk about the things that I'm happy about.
Will he?
Good choice.
The floor is not yours, sir.
Oh, one thing. Sorry. The diversity symposium thing where I was supposed to get graduate students to present. I was told not to send out a call for papers for that because we didn't have enough time, and I was a little bit annoyed at that, so I had to do it piecemeal, which is really bad if you've ever put together a conference, so I'm going to ignore that advice. If you know somebody who has like a completed presentation and is doing research related to some aspect of diversity, tell them to email me and I will give them space to present on the university's, with the university support. So April 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So tell them to email me and I will guarantee that they have space to present.
I'm sorry, can you say the date again?
April 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I have all of that time to fill with presentations, and if I'm really being frugal about it, you could put 3 15-minute presentations in there with a 15-minute Q&A session or any combination. The point of this is to make clear the institution's support for research that engages with diversity broadly construed, because the university has a habit of not celebrating that, and yeah. So just have them email me and I can all but guarantee that they will get a place to present, because as of right now I have like 4 presentations, which is really nice. But, you know.
Is it graduate students?
Yes.
10 to 3, April 19th, 15 minutes is what they should aim for.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank you, John. Will?
All right. We're going to start with the research award first. Diana's been over there hard at work putting together our packets. I'll give the floor to her and she can give you guys an update on where we are.
So,
Do it.
as my count, I'll even count this one, why not? We had a total of 84 submissions.
Come through GPSC.
Those all valid, full?
No, those are just what I received. I have to go through and we're going to count the valid ones that are complete ones later, but that's how many I printed out.
You need that paper, right?
What's that?
You need that printer?
I sure did. Thanks, Willie, for letting me do that rather than having to do it at home. But yes, and so we're on schedule. I will the committee will be meeting on Saturday to review this. Those who are also reviewing will be reviewing this week leading up to that meeting. And then on Monday, we will make our decision, but now it's set on Monday. So out of these 84, hopefully we'll find 5 wonderful candidates who will then be awarded our $1,000. So it should be an exciting day. Exciting day, Saturday. There's no mercy in this dojo though. That's our inside joke from earlier. I was like, what? Did it turn in the proper thing? Sweep the leg. So we're hopefully making it, if they didn't have everything complete, so hopefully we'll be able to whittle this down and kind of realize who our possible candidates can be.
I'm excited because last year we had, obviously, we were grading.
Yeah.
We had we had like 8 really good programs, and we had to make some tough decisions. So I hope you guys are just as challenged. Also, like I said, the research awards will be at the last meeting, and I think we'll have at least like Dr. Lee there or something to present the awards to the students. So I don't foresee that being an issue.
Yeah.
There'll be some sort of personality in us. That's more important.
Anything else?
Unless nobody else would like to assist, I can always break this down and, add other reviewers, but I think that we're good right now. So I think we can get through this.
Cool. So we had one event funding request, which is going to be our last event funding request, from the International Student Council in support of their international games, which is an event that they've done annually since at least 1978. It's almost, I guess it's, think of the Olympics. That's what this is kind of like. They asked for $1,500, which we do not have. What we do have is $363. The committee made a recommendation to expend our last funds and supported this wonderful event. And we're recommending that the general body do the same.
Motion?
Motion second. All those in favor? Thank you so much. Motion was properly moved and passed.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
That was for the International Student Council's International Games.
The international games, yeah. We are now out of event funding. Okay.
What do we have left in travel funding?
In travel funding, we have a little over $2,500 left. For the GPSC USG legislative road trip, that is coming together quite well. We've got a full day already scheduled for the 19th, meeting with senators and representatives from Chicago to Peoria to places in between. We're still fleshing out our April 20th date. We will have, if anyone is interested in going, we'll have one spot available. Myself from GPSC and Ben Handler from USG will be heading the delegation. He's taking one of the senators from USG. If anyone's interested in going from GPSC, please let me know. And we'll get you on the trip. It'll be on the 19th and the 20th. We'll leave early on the 19th, like at about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to pick our first meeting. We'll either be at 8:30 or 9:30. So we'll cover lunch on the 19th, dinner on the 19th, and lunch on the 20th.
Do you have any questions about that?
And hotel accommodations will be taken care of. And I just want to say this is being sponsored in part by the Vice Chancellor's office. Ray Stetler thought that this was important and made a significant contribution to this effort. So we want to acknowledge their support of this endeavor. And again, our goal is to talk about the need for a budget, higher education in general, but specifically to remind these legislators who are not from Southern Illinois that they have students who are impacted by this lack of a budget here in Southern Illinois as well.
So specifically, if you are someone who's not around here, or even if you are, but you are a resident in lifelong, little nudging, so to speak. That'll even be better. If you're worried at all or hesitant about, I don't know what to say or how it's going to go, rest assured that you will have a beautiful, eloquent set of talking points given to you by Mr. Lyles. I've used them myself, and they're amazing, and they will destroy state representatives and senators. I've seen it happen. He is that good in the Senate.
Thank you, guys.
I was saying. Okay. Road trip, the big event. Did you want to give us something on what you guys did?
I mean, we had a really fun time. I think that, I was fortunate enough to be out at Touch of Nature, and so it was a really beautiful afternoon. I'm sure everybody else really enjoyed their Saturdays, but there was a lot of spirit in the air. And so, I think that it was a first year event, and so there's always room for growth. And so if you did attend by chance of some other RSO, make sure you also are giving that feedback so they can grow and better the event in the future.
Right.
But I got a cute shirt, got a little backpack, got a little snacky snack. It was good times. It was all right. Felt all right about it.
I move on to my report. Chancellor Search Committee, what John was excited about. And dates.
I want to go get them from my office.
We have Go get. No, you're fine with it. So this month we will be meeting 4 chancellors, final candidates. One of them is our current chancellor. If you look online, I believe did you guys do a story on this? Mm-hmm. They did, and the Southern also did a story. 3 filings on. I want to talk to somebody. It's like the most important part. One of the candidates is left out, but that's just me. They when they are here, part of the campus visits, there'll be 2 sets of forms on. And we have our so USC and Gpsc will get a joint form to talk with all these candidates, and so while it's written on a scratch piece of paper, it'll be on our website, and we'll be emailing it to you. I cannot stress to the very few people remaining in the room how important it is for us to show up to these, because if you want any sort of sense of who the next person running the campus is going to be, or want them to think why should they care about graduate students when they don't care enough to even show up on big decisions and forums. To my knowledge, on this set, so it will be Wednesday the 19th, Tuesday the 11th, Wednesday the 19th, Tuesday the 25th, and Thursday the 21st. And the students where we used to meet in the Student Services Building in rooms 150, 160 from 8:45 to 9:45 in the morning.
All graduate students.
All right. So the way that this is structured, all of the forums will be on Tuesday the 11th, Wednesday the 19th, Tuesday the 25th, Thursday the 27th. So those are the dates. There will be a open forum with scripted questions from 8:45 to 9:45 in the morning. And then from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., there will be an open forum without scripted questions where you can show up and ask them any questions you want. I do not understand why they have done this.
So our recommendation is skip the scripted questions portion and go to the 5 o'clock
Wait,
session.
how's it open forum? Open forum is meaning open to the public?
Yeah.
Open to-
Scripted?
Yeah, there are 2 forums. One of them, so.
What do they say is open forum? Like,
Yeah,
it's open
it's
to the
ridiculous.
public?
Don't even.
They're calling it, they're calling it. So at 5, from 5 to 6 p.m. on, and we'll send this all out to you. There's Tuesday the 11th, Wednesday the 19th, Tuesday the 25th, and Thursday, is it the 21st or 27th? 27th.
And all of the open forums happen on those same days.
Yes.
Okay.
In the morning and in the afternoon, there'll be forum. In the morning, I'll be sitting on that panel, and so will John, asking some of the specific questions. But there's really, there's not a whole lot of latitude, and I'll be honest with you. I personally don't feel like, you're gonna get you're just gonna get a canned answer that they didn't plan for. And there's a sense of, we have to ask the same person all the same questions, get the same response at the same time. Everyone's questions are all canned and they don't really relate to anything or relate to their specific reasons of why, what makes them special, why do you want to come here. So if I had any time on these dates, I would skip the 1 in the morning because you want to sleep in anyways, and go to the 5 o'clock one, because then you can actually ask a question and get a sense of who our next leader of the campus could be. Yeah, the chancellor.
You could go to both. It might not be a bad idea to go to both. At the 8:45 one, you get to watch me exercise self-control, which might be worth the price of admission. But all joking aside, go to both because sometimes the canned answers can give you a kind of insight into the individual. If you really want to put the screws to them, go to the one from 5 to 6. So there you have it.
What's similar too is, I will be at one of those 5 o'clock ones, especially because the biggest issue we've had, like we outlined in our goals at the beginning of this year, is our lack of consistency. And so I will ask them, you plan on being here for 10 years? So I'm not sure I can answer that. It's simple. Do you plan on being here for 10 years? That's not a question you can ask the scripted ones. That's one I can ask about the clock. I personally know that the answer to that to a couple people, but I don't know the answer to a couple other candidates. There's certain things, that are pivotal to our, if we want, because far after all, we believe the reason why we're all here trying to advocate for, positive change is because we realize that the piece of paper we get from this place is only going to be as good as what it is in real time. And so, that's why we got to do the best we can.
See that one of these individuals, I want to say it was Elwell, has been a finalist at some other universities, one in particular, my alma mater. Is it okay if I call my alma mater and ask?
We already did that.
Well, no, you can do that.
You can do it personally.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The council had given a strict on-off list on this type of procedure that was to be followed and that's already been done. So, as a general member of the community, you can you know that personally, you can more than welcome do it.
Additionally, since somebody is at some point going to ask us this, neither Brandon nor I can comment on the process of selection or how these individuals were selected as finalists. We can't even comment it in our capacities as students. I had a nice hour-long conversation with Matt Ballman and Lori Achenbach, where they explained to me that even within my arena of academia, I am unallowed to comment on anything that happened because I sat on that committee. Right, see? But to that end, I highly recommend that you guys go to these open forums and ask all the questions that I can't.
I think it's both our impression. What you're saying is if you don't show up, you don't ask questions, and it goes largely unnoticed, there is a candidate that will be pushed through that will not be super interesting. That's our personal opinion. So. That is the limit line. You can partially stepping over what we can say.
I have a question. So how much power does the chancellor have as far as making changes, substantial changes to the school? And as far as kind of the chain of command, who's like the highest?
The president.
Level? So president Dunn is the highest?
So all hiring and firing decisions are recommended to the Board of Trustees from the Chancellor's office after a search is concluded. The Chancellor can authorize searches to go forward and so on and so forth. Any institutional changes are recommended, as long as they don't affect the system, they don't generally need board approval. So an RME to add a program, right, has to be presented to the board by the president, and the board usually rubber stamps it unless the program is like super controversial, like intro to marijuana growth or something like that.
So wait, when you say the board, are you talking about the chancellor and
The board
vice
of
president?
trustees.
Board
The
of
board of trustees,
Yeah.
and that doesn't include the president, I mean, the chancellor, is that a separate entity?
Yes, the chancellor
Okay.
reports to the board on institutional matters. Major institutional changes have to go through the board because of the way that our institution is set up and because of IDAG. However, if somebody wanted to say move departments, he doesn't have to submit that to the board unless said person lacks tenure in one department, moved to another department, was recommended for tenure on the basis of that person's service in another department, because that has to go to the board for a salary change.
So institutional changes,
He can do
have
it.
to, he can do without,
Yes.
without the
I
board. So if he can't, so if we get a new chancellor and they decided that the way that we institute, like, I don't know, salary, not salaries, but like the fees, tuition, he can do that without,
No, he could do that and
Okay.
recommend it to the board.
he still has to recommend it to the board, okay.
So, for instance, as an example, so the chancellor's limit is, so he proposed they come to this board, have to get approved by us in USG, or usually have to get at least addressed to, then they go to the board of trustees.
Okay.
Those type of fees, he doesn't have a direct, he doesn't have control to say yes or no, but he has a great big say in how that goes about, as we realize in terms of it even coming to a vote. He can prevent, if like say like we were advocating for the student legal services fee to be increased. Well, the chancellor said he wasn't raising any fees, and lo and behold, even though both student bodies recommended to give a vote, even though the board of the advisory board voted to raise the fee by $1, that recommendation just simply got lost at the board of trustees level and never was mentioned. Whereas, and on down from that is that all your class fees, so your book fees, your subscription fees, any those type of fees on that level, the chancellor has 100% control. And that requires no approval from anybody. Alright, so the good thing is it is actually happening this month. The finalists come down, so it's on time. I guess I can only stress that we need to come to those, and we will do our best to notify and re-notify you to know what's going on. I don't know if anyone has Twitter or is there a better social media outlet than that other than Facebook? But I will even do my best to post off the Gpsc Twitter thing, as it should just send reminders. Even if it's in like real time, I don't know.
I tweet.
Yeah.
Y'all can follow me and watch me strain my self-control.
I think after we refer and see if we're allowed to, I think you will see especially after the forum, I think it's worth having at least a discussion on an executive committee level to talk about what seems to be most friendly, chancellor-friendly candidate in terms of like supporting our policies, students in general, graduate assistants.
We couldn't be there for that, could we?
I'm not sure if we could or not. I'm saying is we already have an idea. We already basically know who that person, what person is left. We'll have to figure out what we can do in terms of building different constraints. While being on the committee. Going down, so that's the Chancellor Search Committee. It's going on.
Can I ask
Yes.
you yes or no question? Is it a possibility that the students can find out the demographics of all the candidates?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I can tell you that. They're all straight white dudes.
Okay.
I think that's the question you're asking.
have all of them not just the four
I think
finalists?
that's the question.
If you go to,
Oh no, the demographics of
The
everybody who
entire, I know
Boy,
that
yeah.
I won't get their name.
you
Okay.
can
Boy, at that.
So many
We can't.
things to be filed.
We cannot tell you the way that went down because we got to review the candidates, and as we sat on the search committee, that would basically be problematic, especially insofar as I understand what you're referring to, having looked at the DE's Facebook page and then been besieged by angry students, and I'm not even kidding. Like, I came to campus for all of 5 minutes, turned around and left because I didn't want to answer these questions, because I can't. If you want to know the demographic makeup of the people who submitted applications, FOIA FOIA them. We can't tell you.
have Austin help you if you want.
Yep.
You know how to do it.
And none of
It's so
the
simple.
other search committees.
I'll probably start it.
So none of the other search committee folks can tell you either. If they do, they risk fouling the search and forcing us to do it all over again. Which, you know.
Which may or may not be what someone wants. So we're trying to avoid that.
Right, so FOIA it.
Maybe that's the question to ask. How does it feel to be amongst, I guess, 4 other straight white men selected, not having any diversity over the elected?
I would do the homework on that though, because it probably will not.
Yeah. I'll ask,
Do the
knowing
FOIA.
I won't get an answer.
Do the FOIA before you ask.
Yeah.
Just do the FOIA before you.
That's
Yeah, do the FOIA before you ask.
do the FOIA before you ask.
Okay.
Like I said, if I could, we would spew off. But.
Yeah, we would.
I'm aware how this stuff works. We're good.
All right, so I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty. As we are now, the President and Chancellor's memo, as I mentioned earlier this week, they walked us both through the implementation of the big budget cuts we have to take, and how we're going to go about that. Like I said, I had a 4+ hour meeting with the Chancellor last week. After that was released the next day, and I was told I could tell you all of this stuff, so I'm going to tell you stuff that we've been talking about for the last year and a half that I haven't been able to tell you. Starting with that, it's the belief that the memo itself and actually filing emergency status is more of a symbolic gesture, because by and large, we can facilitate all of the same measures without actually filing emergency status, but it was ironic that the President did testify at the Senate's Higher Education Budget Committee the day after he presenting his big news story. There's obviously concern because the more we do this, the more it hurts retention and enrollment, and that just it seems to be at a state of not knowing what to say, when to say it, type of things. But to do notify you that we have officially started the emergency process. That was the purpose of that meeting.
Point of information.
Yes.
Does he have like a PR office?
Yes, her name is Ray Goldsmith. She.
I would say this is the President's PR office, not the Chancellor's.
Doesn't Ray handle? Oh no, she does. Yeah.
So the President's PR person, I think Dunn is just in control of all that from the outside looking in, and so I think this is a very intentional move done, because at the end of the day, it's more symbolic when the road meets the road. That's not to say though that they can, and I know people have been notified about the possibility of layoffs after the semester ends. But you know, as all things go, you know, what powers the university in terms of its staff and labor support and things like that, it's all contractual. So you can't do anything until the contract runs out anyways. But a lot of those, in the last 2 years, they've moved a lot of 2-year contracts to 1-year contracts, and a lot of 1-year contracts to semester-long contracts. And so because of that, and even though we were told, well, that's not why we did it, well, you know, ironically now that all these contracts are going to be coming, a lot will be coming to the end and could stand out to be renewed after the semester. What we were told, like John was saying, is due to the dirty data and the program prioritization, which I think only the Chancellor, I'm not going to say like he was ignorant and thinking he'd get it done, but I think he was overly optimistic in the university's ability to work with themselves, because you have this juxtaposition between the provost's office and the deans, more or less, and the faculty saying, like, well, you know, anything you say can and will be used against you to cut your program. It's basically how, and I think there's past experience to validate that, and I think and some say that it's not realistic, but that's the game that everyone's more, by and large, from playing much like contribute good data. And so I asked, well, what will you be using? And I was told that there'll be a number of measures, mostly of which will be obvious low-cutting fruits, IBHE standards, and common best practices, And that will result, after consulting with us initially and consulting with all the constituency groups again, will result in a, about probably we'll see or hear of it before our next meeting with him. Is the chancellor's office will be giving or handing off the provost and the deans a number, and with a very loosely set of instructions on what to do with that number, and it'll likely include a major cut of something somewhere, because the whole university agreed that they didn't want another university-wide cut, so he said something has to go. He would not tell us, because they said more or less hadn't decided until he got as much feedback as possible, but the D-Day, in terms of when they're giving that number to the provost and the deans, is April 10th, which means we were told that we're probably privy to it around April 11th, just for seeing they make some screw-up mistake. The chances are we'll probably hear about it April 10th, because whoever gets the shaft will probably tell anybody and everybody. That's just human nature, is my guess. And then they will have a month to facilitate this, I'm assuming this holding plan of sorts, or whatever it is, and report back how they're going to make that number work in their college, what the effects are going to be by and large. However, the chancellor did emphasize that he will be giving the deans as much leeway as possible in terms of enrollments and hiring professors here and there, because he still is adamant that the $11 million number of where most of these cuts are going to be coming out of is still largely dependent upon if any enrollment doesn't go down as badly as what they think it is, and they're planning for a $750,000 shortfall in enrollment for the fall semester. B, if we have any other summer school revenue, and C, if we get any sort of stopgap measures. Even though Rauner said there's no stopgap, he said that last time when he signed it. So if any of those three things trigger on, that will drastically change the situation. But which I think we should be finally acting as if nothing's going to happen, and all that information will come out on the 10th, and we'll probably hear about it on the 11th. But then you will see the actually day-to-day processes or effects of like positions and things like that by no later than, I'd say, the latest July 1. As it relates to graduate assistants, I want to emphasize that when we took the chancellor to task, his circular logic that Jonathan and I have been dealing with all year, because he stated, and I quote, all the GA money that's there now is still going to be there no matter what next year, because you guys took a big cut. And my response was that's great, but you just said that the deans can do anything they want with the money that they get. Yes. So even though the money is there, that doesn't mean they have to spend it on graduate assistants.
Yep.
And he said, well, I guess, but I don't know why they wouldn't want to.
Because the dean,
I know. So that's what the answer I got back, and I explained to him the issues that we've had in terms of transparency with the deans. Most recently, as noted, Dean Komaraju, but really prior this year, we a number of the hard sciences deans have stated that they're going to have accreditation issues if they can't maintain a certain level of terminal faculty, which means that they have to get rid of their DAs. However, I know at least the School of Engineering just did their 6-year accreditation process. So there's that.
So if I'm going to jump in here.
I'll hand that off to the GAU president.
Okay, so from a union perspective, if you have a contract, because the current contract has no language involving layoffs, furloughs, whatever, GAs are not subject to that. So they can't lay you off if your contract has already been executed. The problem lies with exactly what Brandon says. Once you reach the end of your contract, if you have not been given a notification of renewal and a new contract, they can just not renew your contract and not refill that position. This is an underhanded way of cutting GA budgets and shifting that money elsewhere. So while the chancellor might say, well, yes, I'm going to give them all this money and the deans can disperse it how they will. Why would a dean not do that? The answer is really simple, because they can't fire us. Now, they also can't fire faculty without declaring a financial exigency. And if they try to impose furloughs on faculty, faculty go into impact bargaining, which allows the faculty to negotiate the administration down based on the impact it would have on the campus, right? NTTs, I don't think have the same option, but I would have to ask my counterpart. But if we're going to talk about really vulnerable positions, it's AP staff, then NTTs, then us. Well, AP staff and civil service are in the same group. So it's AP staff, civil service, then NTTs, then us, then faculty, right? But in terms of why a dean might not want to do that, or why a dean might not want to allocate GA money, because they can move it elsewhere. And while GAs aren't that expensive, a GA can't chair a thesis committee or engage in certain kinds of service work within a department, but at the same time they have to weigh whether or not they're going to get faculty to teach the 100 level courses we teach. So our biggest problem, hence the thing that I said at the beginning, the forcing graduate council to take action in line with that, or with the resolution that they passed to protect graduate student funding, because Dean Komaraju is going to be in the room when I tell her to do this. And she'll have to take that back to the other dean. But
my recommendation would be to anyone who's going to be here next year who's going to be a graduate assistant, especially the international students. The way that I would interpret it, and we told in the meeting, is that that money is already accounted for. So there's no reason that your faculty, or dean can't already issue a contract for next year. And when they say, well, we don't have the money, you say, no. I or the chancellor said that money is already accounted for next year no matter what. So you can give me that money unless you're planning on getting rid of line. Or if you give me rid of line, have the decency in telling me so I can go find another job. So that's what you should be doing right now, and telling everyone else who has an assistantship to be doing right now, especially the international students, because obviously the time constraints and all the extra BS on top of everything else that they have to deal with, because their visa process, I imagine, is probably going to be even more attenuated than it ever has been. So if you have an assistantship, ask for renewal. If you're in good standing and there's no reason, and it's already and there's an assumption that you're already going to be there next year, say, well, where's my contract? You just give it to me now because I know you've already been guaranteed the money. That's what because there's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Yeah, there's nothing that theoretically prevents you from saying, give me a contract, except for them saying no. With regard to the international students, GLU is going to do the thing that it did last year and the year before it, and ask the chancellor to engage, or ask the chancellor to recommend to deans and chairs that they get moving on international student contracts, given the admittedly strange times that we're living in.
And last, and I actually add something on that too, is I can provide a link so this for the international students is Arizona State School of Law actually did a 2.5-hour wonderful seminar on Know Your Rights in terms of the executive orders. It's a webinar that's available online. The problem is that it's outdated because it was prior to the second executive order, and it's prior to the new just general administrative changes that they're doing. It is our hope that we can provide a similar one, whether it's through our law school or a legal alumni before the end of the semester. And we would provide, whether that's in paper or a webinar or a recording, and we will disperse that probably via our listserv, if not in person or wherever it is. But we're working towards writing some sort of similar material, if not the actual link, because just knowing all the ins and outs and things you should be looking out for, regardless of them being repealed or not. There's still a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of things that international students should be aware of. The last thing, the student trustee elections. I am somewhat happy to announce today that we get the massive negotiation between the administration and the undergraduate students, which in reforming on the rules make it an actual somewhat level playing field for a graduate or professional student to run for student trustee, is, I would say, almost finished. The last sticking point that we had, and we didn't tell you this before, was that we did not want the administration to retain any appeal authority over the election committee, because last year the election committee voted, I want to say 3 or 4. I know they voted unanimously, so that's the administration on the committee, the hearing officer on the committee, the 3 undergrads and the 3 graduate students all voted unanimously, or who was there of them, 3 times to carry out certain actions, and the vice chancellor overturned them every single time. And so we're not happy with that because it felt like the committee was fake and it had no power. So that was one of the biggest things going into this year. And aside from pulling the student trustee election away from the USG election to cap the insurmountable power that you get if they just ran as a party ticket the undergrads with, is that if there's an appeal of the committee itself, it couldn't be chosen or come from the administration in any way, shape, or form. Faculty Senate and Grad Council has volunteered to facilitate people to do that, which will be selected by myself or the GPSC president, USC president. I'm hoping, we are waiting on confirmation though of the other constituency groups to be willing to do so. It is my hope that when I communicate or verify this to the administration and USG, that they will be in agreement and I can sign the actual packet to get the election started. I don't think there are any questions about that at all. Just want to give you an update. I could go on hours like John did, and we're very unhappy and happy about, but we're not going to because it is officially 9:20.
Right.
And so, unless there are any crazy announcements,
Your committee report.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. So I don't know if y'all know what the culture of respect, the purpose of it is, but basically we are redrafting the entire training process for Title IX and sexual assault policy on campus. Not only will that include faculty training, but it will also include student training. And so it's a pretty important committee. Important to note before I tell you some of the issues I'm having is that this is supposed to be a 2-year project. It is a pilot. Well, the pilot study's already been done, so we're in the 2nd draft of this pilot project. It has seen success at other universities. I think there were 14 pilot institutions. So we've had 2 meetings. John told you all a little bit about our first one. So I will tell you some of the issues I'm having with it. I don't need y'all to take any action just yet, but I think it's important to keep y'all updated on what's happening. So at the second meeting, so at the first meeting, it was suggested that at the second meeting, we're supposed to do this survey of the campus climate, where we basically say, like, are the laws clearly written on the website? Is it easily accessible? How do faculty members understand it? Are the instructions clear for faculty members? What is the student perceptions of these things? And it was suggested that we have 2 separate meetings because we wanted everyone's opinion. Instead, the organizers of the group decided to only have 1 meeting, which meant that a lot of people couldn't be there for the entire meeting. A lot of people's opinions were not heard, which is uniquely problematic because there are only, I think, maybe max 6 student representatives on there, me being one of them. And that's obviously a problem when you have a ton of faculty members who are, in a lot of cases, in admin, who don't really have a lot of access to students. They're not aware of students' perceptions of sexual assault or Title IX in general. So because they only had 2 meetings, I could only make it to the first half. In the first half, the few problems that I noticed were that first, we were focusing a lot on the legal wording and rhetoric of the ways in which we express the Title IX policy on the website, which I completely understand. We have to have clear legal rhetoric, and it has to be as easily read as possible by faculty members and students. However, the issue became that when we suggested changes to make it a tad bit more clear, there was a lot of defensiveness on part of one person in particular, and it made it difficult to have these conversations. But other than that, not too big of a deal. We handled it. The one thing that I did notice while I was there, that there was a lot of focus on conversations about women as sexual assault survivors, which is problematic because all of the research conducted is focused on white women's experiences, and our experiences are incredibly different than those of the LGBT community and non-white bodies. And so these are issues that might come up in the future because there is not a lot of representation on the committee. There were a few times when I did have to speak up. So the point here is that it seems like there's not a lot of focus on student perspectives. As a student survivor at my previous institution, I chose not to report because the legal rhetoric was intimidating. You have to read pages and pages, and to figure out how and when you should report. And I am one of the most privileged classes who's most likely to be sexually assaulted. So add race or sexuality or gender to that question, and the issues become much harder to focus on. Again, I don't know if that's something I need y'all to address right now. I have talked to other members of the committee. We've agreed to kind of take a stronger force on that and have these push those conversations a little bit more and ask that more LGBT representatives be on the committee. If that is not the case, I have promised to the other 5 members that I will ask y'all to make a statement of some sort, if y'all would do that, to request more representation, particularly from students and LGBT students and students of color.
What one council can do this?
It's called, I don't know what y'all
The
have.
core, the consent, or the.
There are
yeah, that's what they
500
call
names for it. NASPA is probably what y'all have for it.
The NASPA core initiative is what
Yeah.
we were initially told. To be,
It's like a sexual assault task force.
if I'm gonna be honest, the lack of representation on the committee is a problem. It's a gigantic.
I never
problem.
heard of that type of thing.
Well, they sent it to me.
Well, that's not.
Really?
That's a problem. Yes. So the fact that we have so few.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because the way that it worked was John Massey, probably by Lori's direction, sent it to me and not to Brandon, and I had to figure something out with it because John Massey sent it to me the day or a couple of days before they actually needed to rep it. I'm like, what in the?
We're supposed to have charter rules say they're supposed to have adequate time to represent so we can.
It was really good. That's why I emailed you about it now.
Yeah.
But if the lack of student representation, if you're encountering issues with student representation on the committee,
So
since you're the rep, we will abide by what you want to do. But my argument would be to hell with them. Get more people.
So the thing is, the issues here are multiple. So the first is that in my experience on the committee, we've only had 2 meetings so far. There, I think, have been, I want to say 5 max students, and that's not even undergraduates. So that, I think that is a problem, but one thing to make note of is that the NASPA setup is that there are representatives from each part of campus. So there's administrative representatives, there's the chief of police for SIU is there. There are representatives from the athletics department, so it's meant to be evenly spaced out, but I think the problem becomes that then we have a lack of focus on
graduate
students'
students are there now?
perspectives. I think 2, maybe. I'm not sure.
How many undergraduates are there?
I think 5 max. So I will say altogether, students, I think that there are maybe 10 at a very high estimate.
Mm.
But I think there's probably less than that.
This is very, at least, we're entitled at least half as many USU students that are there. Generally, it's a 2/3 from the community.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable with coming through things and saying that there needs to be at least especially because it's usually a sexual relations.
So the issue is that, so I've been on a task force like this before, and if I polarize myself too much, so I study sexual assault on college
I'd be
campuses,
happy
so I
to
just
be a
don't want to.
polarizer if you want.
But the problem is they know I'm the representative.
Oh.
Like my title, I have a little placard that says GPSC representative. So if you, as the GPSC president, goes to say something, they know that I have titled.
So what if the chairman of the SMS task force were to talking to you,
Oh, me.
or her,
Chris.
were to be your polarizer?
Can I try an option first? So
Yeah.
this is my idea to ask Dr.
You
Massey
are-
for a breakup of how many students versus, to ask for a list of who is present, because the problem has become that not everyone has been present at a single meeting yet, so I can't give an actual count. So if I can email them and say, hey, can you tell me who's here?
You have the actual operating paper and everything else, because that's something you should also ask for. Every task force like that should have some cursory.
I got a bunch of outline documents that I sent to you, but none of those was an actual charge of a committee.
Yeah, you should have a charge, an operating paper, and a who should be represented on the committee, not the name is supposed to be where they're coming from on every committee.
Yeah.
Not to say that ever happens, but that's what
I would say,
Can I email and
Yeah,
kind
get
of
back
use
to us.
y'all's name and say, hey, GPSC would like to know who the representatives are on this committee?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, then it won't sound as weird. So if they have to have little questions on that stuff.
Anything else? You guys are rock stars. Thank you for being here so late.
If you have questions about contract stuff, email me, or stop by my office on Thursday when I'm in there. GPS or USG. All in favor, yes. USG is meeting about the resolution right now.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, because they Jared showed up and gave an entire presentation on the budget thing that was like a pile of fluffy bullshit. It was the administration line.
Did you guys have the
You have
last
21.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's
We're
spending more quotes.
So what I'm kind of confused about is, so we're not using
Okay.
the academic first.
No,
At all.